Hey, Gordon. Can you just talk about what went on with Mikey this week? He made his debut at FPI 9. You had called his match. Obviously, there was some discourse on social media back and forth. But after his match, he said he didn't really have a problem with you. Have you guys spoken or quashed any of that beef?
Yeah, I don't know. I woke up and Mikey was just like attacking me. I've always been nice. I've trained with Mikey before, and we've always been nice to one another. And I actually talked pretty positively about him on Rogan's podcast when I was on there. And I've never had anything against Mikey, but he always has my name in his rants about steroids and things like that. And he always says he'll say my name and then he'll be like, these guys aren't athletes or these guys are mentally weak or whatever the case is. So I let it go for a while, and he just kept attacking me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna play that game. Let's play that game. And I don't have any issue with Mikey, but if you want to attack me, we can play that game. And all these guys who stand on moral high grounds in the sport are just the fakest people on the planet. So just this is a guy who's attacking my morals and saying, he's a cheater, this and that. This guy has been on 37 different jiu-jitsu teams. He just takes what he wants from a team, and then when he has all the knowledge that he can get, he just leaves and goes to a different team. It's just shut up, dude. Just leave me alone and do your thing.
Now that the UFC is getting more and more into professional grappling, what are your thoughts on cleaning up the sport as far as PEDs and drug testing as professional grappling gets more and more in the mainstream?
Well, I think I'm pretty indifferent as to insofar as PEDs one way or the other. If a tournament wants to have them, great. If they don't want to have them, great. I think obviously the matches will be better. I think the athletes will be better athletes. The athletes will definitely be able to get paid more, because the better you perform, the better you look. These are all things that will lead to you being paid more as an athlete. People want to see the world's best athletes. So if I go out there and I'm 30 pounds overweight and I look like a slob or I'm not jacked, me and Andre, we both went out and we competed at ADCC and we were both shredded. We looked like real athletes, and that's what people want to see. And the main issue right now with taking performance enhancers out of jiu-jitsu is there's not one governing body in jiu-jitsu. So you or I can start a tournament tomorrow, and we can, one of us can have PEDs legal and one of us can have PEDs illegal. So the problem is that if one organization makes it so that PEDs are illegal, but then all the other organizations that you're competing at throughout the rest of the year say they're legal, now I have to be clean throughout the year to compete at your one organization, but the rest of the guys who aren't competing at your organization can do steroids the full year round. So then I'm competing against those guys natural, and in the other organizations, those are the guys who are using PEDs. So the problem is it needs to be one thing across the board. They either need to be legal across the board for all the big tournaments, or they need to be illegal, because then if they're illegal for one but they're legal for the other, you're just going to have athletes who won't compete in those events. Like you see IBJJF, they started making PEDs illegal for worlds, and for no-gi worlds and for gi worlds. And now the athletes just aren't even competing at them. Or they're competing, they're getting popped, and then they're taking 2-year suspensions. So it just kind of ruined IBJJF. The top-level guys just aren't doing it anymore because of the fact that they're competing in other organizations all year round, and the other guys who are competing in those organizations are going to be juiced up for the full year, but then they have to cycle off to get ready for IBJJF. So it's the problem. The main problem is there's not one governing body. So if you fix that and everyone agrees PEDs are legal or PEDs are illegal, then you can kind of make some progress. But right now, if only one organization does it or two organizations do it, it's not really going to work.
Last one for me. It kind of sounds like you're saying for the advancement of the sport almost, that you don't think that they should be eliminated. It's more exciting. The athletes get in better shape. They're able to recover faster. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, for all sports, the reason people watch professional sports is to see the absolute best athletes in the world do what they do. And when you take performance enhancers, it makes you a better athlete. So I just think that across the board, that if people want to see the best athletes are the people on PEDs. And in addition, you have to understand that PEDs, PED testing, steroid testing, is a multi-million-dollar organization. But the money that goes into beating steroid tests is a multi-billion-dollar organization. Like when you have people competing at the Olympics, you have scientists hired by the country of Russia, by the country of China, by the country of the United States to go out and to beat these tests. So all that PED testing really does, in my opinion, is it makes it so that the people with the good teams and doctors can afford to beat the tests, and then the guys who are up and coming, who are just, at some obscure gym in Kentucky who are trying to make their way up, those guys can't beat the test, and they have to compete natural. So all you're doing is that you're making so that the guys on top can still afford to beat the test, and the guys on bottom can't afford to beat the test. So then you have natural guys competing against juice guys anyways, whereas if they're legal, then everybody can just take as many steroids as they want, and, if it's really against your moral code or whatever the case is to take steroids, then do it natural. I have no problem with that. But, it gets tricky because there's always guys that are going to beat the tests. And I think that, obviously it complicates it when you have PED testing, but there's still going to be guys that are on steroids. I mean, you look at the NFL has drug testing, and the guys in the NFL have traps coming from their AC joints up to their ears. So, it's just, largely a joke. It's just for show.
Gordon, in front right here. When you have like Mikey, he's been talking about this PED issue for a long time, but when he's on the platform of the UFC now, it gets amplified, obviously, and especially in America, the PEDs just have a stigma about it in all sports. So I guess why do you think there is such a stigma surrounding? Because as you said, the best athletes are on performance-enhancing drugs make the sports more exciting. That seems to be the argument about baseball, basketball, football, but why do you think there is this stigma and hesitation to kind of accept that PEDs are being widely used?
It's that's an interesting question. Like if you look at Brazil, like you could go into the pharmacy and you could get like a lot of the PEDs over the counter. It's I don't really know why Americans have this big thing that are against PEDs. A lot of them consider it to be cheating, and in a lot of sports it is cheating. Like a lot of sports you aren't allowed to use them. Insofar as why Americans don't agree with the use of PEDs, I'm not really sure. Because when you look at Americans, they want to see athletes be the best athletes they can be, the lifespan of an athlete is relatively short. PEDs help improve that lifespan. You can compete longer, you can recover faster, and if you're competing until 30 or 35 years old, maybe you can squeeze an extra 2 or 3 years out of that, and you can give the fans what they want. You can keep competing for a longer amount of time, and make a little bit more money yourself for it. So I'm not really sure why Americans dislike the use of PEDs. It's versus relative to other countries. I'm not positive.
And moving on from the PED talk, just where are we at in your own career? Because obviously we saw you at MSG with John Jones. I think you said you're not coming back for ADCC 2026, or am I misremembering that?
Kynan called me out. Everyone calls me out, so here we are. I'm just trying to rehab my knee right now because I had a ACL and PCL sprain, and then an LCL, grade 2 LCL tear in the first match, the match with Penna, and then my stomach. I always have a bellyache, so you're just trying to get that back to normal. And Mo stepped down from ADCC, so someone's going to take ADCC, and I wasn't going to do this ADCC this last time, but I felt like I kind of owed it to Mo to do, and I thought that it would be important for me to break the all-time gold medal records for John as our coach, for him to say that he has a student that did that. But the next one, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Number one, the main thing is my health. Just getting my stomach to a point where I can actually, grapple well. And then number two, we'll see what ADCC becomes in 2026. Because I really did this last one. My stomach was so bad, I just did this as a favor to Mo. But now that Mo's gone, I really have, no reason to do it unless, I'm healthy enough and there's some kind of incentive to do it.
I'm just curious your take on it, because we spoke to Crone Gracie at Media Day, and I'm sure you saw some of his last fight where he pretty much only grappled. And Dana said it was limited. Crone said it was one of his biggest mistakes. He showed up with one tool because he felt pressure from the jiu-jitsu community to only use jiu-jitsu. So I'm curious, what do you make of just like Crone, that approach, that high-level jiu-jitsu, but it's obviously MMA. You can't only use that.
Well, if you look at like Khabib used like pretty much only jiu-jitsu, but he just kind of he kind of transcended wrestling and he transcended jiu-jitsu, where it was like more of a submission wrestling game. Like if you look at Khabib's game, it's a lot more similar to what we do in an ADCC rule set than it is in like a freestyle wrestling or a collegiate match. So, I mean, Khabib did it the same way as Kron's doing it, but Khabib did a much better job, obviously, of transcending jiu-jitsu and transcending wrestling and kind of merging them together to become successful. Whereas, Kron in his past fights has used traditional old school jiu-jitsu, and traditional old school jiu-jitsu just isn't enough to translate into mixed martial arts. You need guys like Hamza, you need guys like Khabib, you need guys like Islam, who if they were to compete in a strictly jiu-jitsu match against the best guy in the world at their weight class, they wouldn't win, but they're a lot more equipped to deal with the best guys in the world in MMA because they've gone further than just what jiu-jitsu is.
Who impresses you the most in the current MMA world in their grappling?
Hamza's really impressive. His ability to scrimmage and to always end up on top is really impressive. Islam is very impressive too. Their ability to, Khabib obviously was, before he retired, but their ability to just get guys up against the fence and work their fence wrestling system and then hold guys down and force guys to carry body weight. So you see Khabib will just let guys up. And every time they go to get up, they're not just getting up, they're carrying Khabib's body weight up. So this style of wrestling for MMA, like you see with Khabib, you see with Islam, you see with Hamzat, I think that is the best kind of grappling that you can have for mixed martial arts.
Gordon, one for me. You commentated at Fight Pass Invitational 9 the other day. What was that experience like, and how did it feel to just be on the other side of things?
It was great. I've commentated before. Other events and an FPI. Techi is doing an amazing job, Stephen Techi, of getting FPI kind of up and off the ground. They've had 9 successful events so far, and every event that they do just gets a little bit better. It feels like you're at a real professional event with a well-oiled machine going through exactly what you need to go through. It's like 601, you're here. 602, you're here. 603, you're here. So it's like boom, 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 you're finished, and that's it. So, the most professional event that I've worked with, insofar as just logistics and production, and every single card has heavy hitters. ADCC medalists, ADCC champions. So every card is getting much better, and I'm excited to see where we can take it. So, unfortunately, I'm not competing, and the one match I did have at FPI, I wasn't satisfied with. So hopefully, I can have another one at some point. But until then, I think just the fans, as much as they hate me and much as people don't like me, I think we can all agree that the commentary was pretty unbiased and technically sound. So props to UFC, props to Fight Pass, and I hope that they're generating enough revenue to keep this going.
Hey Gordon, right back here. Gordon, obviously this has been a huge year for Jiu-Jitsu around the world. The number of events, the number of high-profile events that gave so many grapplers big opportunities. As a guy who's been, at the head of the, sport for so long, what's it like seeing so many other men and women get these opportunities and kind of make more of a living just through Jiu-Jitsu and maybe not as much pressure to go into MMA and stuff like that if they don't want to?
Well, it's great. 5 years ago when I, first burst onto the scene, I said my whole thing is I want to take jiu-jitsu mainstream, which I don't think it quite is right now. I mean, T-Mobile was almost, the arena we are in right now was almost sold out for ADCC. You have some guys who are on the verge of becoming household names, but it's not quite mainstream yet. But we're getting there. And, now we have guys who are making 6 figures a match, which is what I said I wanted to do, years ago. And I said that I wanted to eventually have, athletes making 7 figures a match. And I think that I'm the driving factor in, in that progression because, even if you just look at jiu-jitsu 10 years ago, it's nowhere near what it is now. ADCC was in high school gymnasiums and we almost just sold out, had a pretty much sold out T-Mobile arena. So I think that we're on the right path, and we need more star athletes is the thing. And the problem with creating a star athlete is, can they keep winning, which nobody can do. Everyone wins 2 matches and loses 1, so it's hard to really create a hype train like that. And if they can keep winning, are they exciting? Either inside of competition or outside of competition. So there's a lot of things there's a lot of requirements to build a star, So it's hard to get a guy who's just keeps winning and is exciting. But that's what we need more of. So if we can find a charismatic guy who can actually not be terrible and just keep winning, across the board against all different styles for years at a time, I mean, that's what we need in this sport.
So we saw you corner John Jones, who talked about, the respect for the game of guys like Khabib, Islam, and Hamzat. If a fighter came to you and they're fighting one of these really dominant Dagestani-style grapplers, what would be some of the first things you would help them with to prepare them to combat such a style on the mat?
So the thing with collegiate wrestling and freestyle wrestling is that the guys, and in judo, of course, when the guys are taken down, they're trained to stop. That's where the action stops, where they get taken down and the guy belly outs, and there's usually a little bit of a break in the action. Because the takedown in and of itself is what scores. In ADCC and in mixed martial arts, the takedown itself means nothing. The control and what happens after the takedown is what matters. So can you actually hold the guy down? And what these guys are so good at is they don't stop moving until they get to top, until they solidify top position. So it's not just like, oh, takedown, let me stop. They can take a guy down, they can follow him and hold him down and either punish him with strikes or make them carry body weight until they concede bottom position. So the whole thing when you're fighting these guys is you have to teach them to hustle till they score and to win the scrimmage. So you don't stop moving. If a guy like Hamzat hits a takedown on you, you absolutely do not stop moving unless you are mechanically pinned, chest to chest in the side control or something, your chest to back where he has your back. Those are the only two reasons you should stop moving. So you don't stop moving unless you're mechanically pinned. So you only stop moving when you're either on top or at least back to neutral in standing position. And a lot of the guys that you see, these guys wrestle, they get taken down and they just stop because that's what they're used to. They're used to training with traditional wrestlers who after the takedown, the action stops. Whereas with us in Jiu-Jitsu and in mixed martial arts, the action starts after the takedown.
Thank you.
Gordon? John Danaher said that he saw on the street people getting soccer kicked to death, and he talks about that like as cold as a cucumber. Have you ever seen him freaked out about anything?
No, it's John's pretty stoic. It's hard to get him really riled up about anything. There was this crazy homeless guy. I think Rogan talked about it a little bit, who actually attacked me like right outside where we train, and I actually soccer kicked him. And John walked outside because he had to go teach at Henzo's. He was going to leave, and he's like, "What happened?" And I was like, this, and this. The cops are on their way. And John goes, "Okay, very good, buddy. I'll see you tomorrow." Like shakes my hand and like just gets in his car and leaves. So I've actually been involved in that exact scenario. And John was just like, "Okay, cool. Like, glad you used some of the stuff I taught you to defend yourself." So it's pretty hard to shake John up.